I was living in San Francisco during the Loma Prieta earthquake, and all the power went out for 3 days. My friend's apartment was totaled. Fortunately, her piano was okay, and I was really freaked out. So we went to stay with some of her students. It was pitch black. But in the midst of all that chaos, I was able to sit at the piano and play the Maple Leaf Rag because I had spent time practicing without relying on my eyes. It was so comforting to be able to do something that was part of my normal life. And plus, it was fun that her little students were so impressed. Now, I'm not saying that you need to practice in the dark to prepare for an earthquake, but I am saying that learning to navigate the keyboard without having to look at it will be a game changer for you. A big reason that pianists rely on their eyes is simple. The brain prioritizes what it sees. Some beginners, especially kids, get in the habit of looking at their fingers to help get the right one moving. You might be looking at your hands to make sure you're hitting the right note. But if you never break this habit, it will most definitely hold you back. Some students get into a loop. They memorize a piece mostly, but since they're always looking at their hands, they have no idea where they are on the page of the sheet music. And if they need to refer back to it when something goes wrong, they are out of luck. At one music teacher's recital, there was a 6-minute performance of the theme of the Goldberg Variations. The unfortunate student had to keep starting over at the beginning as a result of this syndrome. One of my current students hates making mistakes. So she wants to always look at the keys before she plays each note to make sure that she's in the right spot. The reality is, you don't need to look at the keys to play well. Think of the incredible blind pianists, Stevie Wonder, Art Tatum, and Nobuo Tsuji. Hope I'm saying that right. The best way to train yourself out of this dependency is to practice with your eyes closed or blindfold. But you don't need to take my word for it. Listen to what Chopin had to say. As soon as you know a piece from memory, practice it in the dark. Then you can really hear yourself, noticing every fault, and the hand acquires an assurance and boldness that it would not if the player is constantly looking at the keys. When you get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, do you have to turn on the lights to find your way? No, you've internalized the layout of your home. Your body knows the distances and knows how to move you to where you need to go. And that's one of the reasons it's very stressful when you move. You have to relearn that map of your home. Playing the piano works the same way. You do not need to look at the keys. Your body is capable of knowing where they are. After all, pairs figure skaters are not looking at each other during a throw, especially if one is spinning in the air. They've trained their bodies to execute these movements with precision. The proprioception, that's what it's called, of knowing where you are in space is an innate human ability, and we need to develop it as pianists and use it to help us play better. There are 2 key aspects of proprioception in piano playing: your large joint proprioception and your tactile proprioception of touching the keys. In addition to being aware of where your arms and torso are relative to the keyboard, developing a sense of touch is essential for precise keyboard navigation. If you are an airplane, your large joints are like your flight plan or your GPS, and your fingers are air traffic control. They guide you so that you know where you are on the keyboard without looking, and especially as you come in for a landing after a leap. And one effective way to build this awareness is what I call the kitty whisker method, which is letting your non-playing fingers lightly touch the keys. This gives you precise feedback about where you are on the pattern of 2 and 3 black keys, and that allows you to know exactly where you are. So if we didn't have the black keys and we're just here touching the white keys, it's like being lost in a desert. It's just all white. You have no idea where you are. There's sensors in the joints that help our brain know where our body is in space. Some of the key joints that would help us measure where we are on the keyboard are in the shoulder. How far are we turning this way, like this? Like if you're playing, ragtime, How far am I going back and forth? Wall space, that kind of thing. Another key joint that will help us know where we are is the hips. So if you're moving up and down the piano, let's say you're playing arpeggios, scales, something like this where you have to move around, this measurement here will help you know where you are. And finally, you might be adjusting how your ribs are relating to your pelvis. You might not only be leaning at the hips. And so those three joints are going to be the main ones that will help you do the big locating on the keyboard. Another key way that you can tell sometimes where you need to be, it's a little bit unusual, but if you have hand crossings, sometimes you can measure like where on my, let's say the left hand's crossing, where on my right arm does the left arm need to be to get to the note I need to go to. And then the final interesting way that you can use that body's ability to tell where you are in space is, let's say the right hand has to leap, like it's here and it has a big long leap and it's got to go way down here. It's much easier if you measure how far that is based on getting near the left hand. Like I say, oh, I'm going to play right next to my left hand. My right hand will go right there. As opposed to saying, oh, I have to leap 2 octaves. That's going to feel very, very large. Anytime a leap feels large, it's harder to play it with more accuracy. So you want to hunt around for ways to think about it that will make it feel small to you. An important way to apply what I call the kitty whisker method is to be able to tell by touch where you are within the landscape of white and black notes. Chopin talked about this. He has a piano method for beginners. He wrote a little bit of it, not much, unfortunately. And he refers to these as the low keys and these as the high keys. So that's one way, is to know if you're touching these high keys or not, where you are in the pattern of the high keys. Seymour Bernstein talks about keyboard topography, and he points out that the keyboard can be divided into symmetrical groups. So one symmetrical group is organized around D. The D is the middle of it, and then you've got 2 black keys and then 2 white keys. And then another symmetrical group is organized around G sharp. And you have a black key, 2 white keys, 2 black keys, and then another 2 white keys. On the piano, you can organize yourself around middle D as being the symmetrical middle of the piano. And he recommended practicing a series of exercises that he wrote, using the 3rd finger of the hand because that's the middle of the hand, and playing inside the black keys so that you are training all of your hand to touch the black keys. For some reason, people really do not want to do that. They do not like to touch the black keys. They're always doing this and this and this. But if you do that, you deprive yourself of this ability to know where you're at without playing, which is crucial for getting to the right note and checking out that it's correct before you play it, instead of getting there, playing it, and then going, uh-oh, that was wrong. So Seymour's series of exercises involves starting on middle D, jumping to the next symmetrical note, G sharp, jumping to D, jumping to G sharp, jumping to D, etc., coming back in, coming to D. You can see I'm kind of touching the keys before I play them to make sure they're right. And then the next thing in his series is to do stopping on each of those, what he called the landmark notes. And those are both preparatory to this exercise, which I'm going to try. I haven't done it for a long time, but doing leaps outwards, contrary motion. And then stopping on the landmark note and then continuing. And this teaches your body several things. It's very symmetrical. It feels very organized. It teaches you to touch inside the black keys and to use both your sense of touching the patterns of black and white keys, as well as proprioception of how large is an octave, which is a key distance that shows up all the time in leaps. Just want to say a little bit more about the importance of knowing which key you're on before you play it, you can teach yourself, your body, I should say, to understand what a note is by just touching it. So like right now I'm touching D. I can feel that the side of my 2 is touching the C sharp here, but there's nothing on the other side of the 2. So I know I'm here between B and C. And then here on the other side of my hand with the 4 and the 5, same thing. I can tell the 4's got the black key on the inside of it, but it doesn't have a black key on the other side. So this has got to be a 2 black key group. That means my third finger's on D. Let's say I'm trying to find B flat, for example. I might find that my 2 naturally goes here to the E, and then I kind of feel this larger space here of the 2 white keys. I know I'm on the E here with my 2, and that puts my 5 right on the B flat. And so those are examples of how you can know for sure that you're on the right key before you play it. Now you have to train that. You have to teach yourself to pay attention to that and notice whether or not, and the fastest way to train yourself is to just play with your eyes closed. You might have to go very slowly. You might have to just do a few notes at a time. But over time, you'll get much, much better at finding the right notes without having to look. And that will make your leaping much more accurate. Of course, it's something that's going to get better over time the more you do it. People are always surprised at how their body can, in fact, actually do that. I remember one person said last week, wow, I surprised myself. My hand went right to A. So it's an innate skill we have as humans that we need to capitalize on as piano players. If you want to play the absolutely most difficult repertoire for piano, you have to master leaps. There's a famous passage by Robert Schumann in his Fantasy C major, Opus 17. It's in the end of the second movement, and the hands are leaping in opposite directions really, really fast, really far, and they go to the melody. They leap to the melody note, and if you miss, everyone will know because it's a melody note. I think it was my teacher at the conservatory told me that Horowitz played that in a recital in Carnegie Hall, and he missed a bunch of notes. And then when he released the LP record, apparently all the notes were correct, and it caused a bit of a scandal. Another thing about leaps and why you need to do them without looking is at some point, hopefully you're leaping very, very fast. You'll be going so fast your eyes will not be able to keep up with your hands. That's where we want to go, right? That's the whole point, is we want to be able to play fast enough. We want to be able to have our hands get ahead of our eyes. So if you watch Yuja Wang play, I think it's the Trish Trash Polka. She has this recording. Her hand is going so fast, it's a blur. You can't even see it when you were watching it. Imagine her trying to look at every note before she leaps there. It would never work. Even though she's amazing, even she could not do that. I have a lot more to say about leaps. It's a key skill that's very difficult for many people. So if you'd like to see a video all about leaps, let me know in the comments. And maybe put your specific questions that you might have about leaps, and I'll try to address them in the video. I'm not saying that you should never look at the keyboard. There are times when it's perfectly fine to look at the keyboard. When you're playing from memory after you already learned your piece. When you're making a very large leap. Or when you're learning a new skill and you want to observe the details of how your hand is moving and checking if it's doing the right thing in some particular spot. The key difference is that you shouldn't have to look. If looking is a choice rather than a crutch, you'll have far greater control over your playing. When you do look at the keyboard, it should be a quick flick of the eyes downward and not a big movement of your head. Your eyes should return rapidly to the sheet music so you don't lose your place on the page. Additionally, you can cultivate the ability to see where you are on the keyboard using your peripheral vision, which makes it much easier to just flick the eyes down and back up without getting lost on the sheet music. Another important benefit of playing piano with your eyes closed is that it enhances your brain power. Research suggests that about half of the brain's capacity is used to process visual input. So by closing your eyes, you effectively double your brain power and let your brain focus on other aspects of playing, which are naturally hearing and touch. You can develop a closer connection with the physical feeling of putting the key down, and you can learn to control the speed that you put the key down. If you're playing an acoustic piano, you can tune into the point of escapement, which is a slight sense of resistance. This is why Chopin recommended that all of his students practice in the dark. The other thing that will happen is you will be listening more closely. You'll start to hear things that you had not heard before. And this will make it much easier to develop greater control over dynamics and come up with phrasing that you like. Practicing with your eyes closed will also make it easier to pay attention to your pedaling. Your brain will naturally be listening more closely, and you'll be tuning into how your pedaling is affecting your sound quality, which makes it easier to refine your pedaling. And once you have that better developed sense of keyboard geography, if you have a grand piano, you can push the music desk back and use your eyes to keep track of how the dampers are interacting with the strings. And this can make it a lot easier to use more complicated pedaling techniques like half pedal and flutter pedal, where you're keeping the dampers very, very close to the strings and making really small little movements with your foot and also the dampers. So if you're interested in a video about more artistic pedaling effects, let me know in the comments. I love pedaling. I'm happy to talk about it all day long. Practicing with your eyes closed will definitely make things harder in the short term, especially if you've never done it before. But it will make things much easier in the long run. Once you develop this tactile map of the keyboard, you improve your ability to sight read. You'll get a lot more confidence in large jumps, and you'll train your body so that it instinctively knows where to go. So in the end, practicing with your eyes closed leads to a lot greater freedom in playing. It moves you away from reliance on visual input and towards a deeper connection with the actual sound that you're making. Try it for very short sections at a time and watch how your confidence at the keyboard grows.